subscribe, hey!
Hi, kid. I'm thinking that you've probably heard of the Three Little Pigs.
Yes, and the big bad wolf who keeps huffing and puffing and blowing their houses down.
Felony! That's it, but this is not that.
She never ceases to disappoint. Ugh.
This is who's writing this story, and the twists are so crazy, they will blow your mind. That's a felony! Not the way we do it, Batticus Finch. Let's go!
But first, the fine print.
That's not necessary.
Of course it's necessary.
Fine. Are you charging me for this?
Of course.
Then read fast.
The characters and events in this book are fictitious. Any similarity to real persons or pigs, living or dead, is purely coincidental and not intended by the author.
Oh, that was, legalities. Am I right? Let's go. Once upon a time, the best 4 words ever, right? Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. The first pig, who wasn't very smart, quickly built her house out of straw.
Wait 1 piggly wiggly minute.
We have story interruptus by page 1.
I sense chaos, so I'm staying.
Who's writing this story?
Asked the first pig.
Where's the writer?
Well, right here. Why? What's the matter, pig number 1?
Actually, my name is Professor Pigsley, and you have my character all wrong. I'm crazy smart, and a crazy smart pig would never build a straw house.
She does make a good point. Then what kind of a house would you build? Asked the writer. Professor Pigsley thought for a minute. And while she's thinking, someone else has snuck in.
I believe that's Agent of Chaos number 2.
Or pig number 2.
Same thing.
She may be right. But back to the story. She's thinking. Because obviously we now know that Professor Pigsley is way too smart to build a straw house, which is what traditionally is built by pig number 1 in the Three Little Pigs story. So what to do? She began to calculate. She added and subtracted. She divided and multiplied. She quickly turned her calculations into a plan. Move this here, move the decimal over. Let me shift this over here. And her plan into, ta-da, a picture.
I would use math and science to build a sturdy brick house that you-know-who would never be able to blow down,
said Professor Pigsley. Nice house. I'll make the changes, said the writer. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to continue with the story. Meanwhile... Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. The first pig was the crazy smart Professor Pigsley. She used math and science to build a sturdy brick house. And the second pig built a cozy stick house in the nearby woods. Cut! What's the matter, pig number 2? I can't live in the woods. Allergies. But you're changing the setting of my story. I'm sorry, but as sure as my name is Pig Newton the Fabulous, I'll be an itching, sniffling, sneezing wreck of a pig if you make me live in the woods. Meanwhile, pig number 1 is voraciously going through her book catalog. How about a giant steel skyscraper in New York City instead? Fine, I'll make the revisions, said the writer, but this is the last straw.
That's funny because there's no straw house in this version of the Three Little Pigs.
And New York City looks fabulous. Imagine the view from way up there. Now, here we go with the amended story.
Okay, is this going to be the story for realsies?
No.
Oh.
More twists to come. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. The first pig was the crazy smart Professor Pigsley, and she used math and science to build a sturdy brick house. The second pig, Pig Newton the Fabulous, built a gigantic steel skyscraper in New York City. And the third pig didn't build a house at all, interrupted pig number 3. What? shouted the writer.
Ooh, she's getting mad.
I'm not a build-your-own-house kind of a pig. I'm a pilot. The great flying pigoletto. To escape the clutches of the big bad wolf, I jump into my airplane, fly high into the sky, and squeal with delight. Oh, Mr. Wolf, try and catch me by the hairs of my chinny chin chin. And the author looks stunned, and the other pigs look pleased, and the wolf looks super bad with some fabulous hair and long claws. Pigoletto, I am sorry, but that won't work. Wait, why not? Because you're changing the story's plot. You can't change the events in the story. It's my story.
Is it now, Little Miss Rider Pants?
I don't like how she said that.
She's lost complete control of the story!
But maybe, just maybe, it's a good thing.
Felony!
Not a felony, but the writing process can be quite messy and surprising and glorious.
Excuse me, Ryder. While we're at it, may I hop in? It's me, Wolfie. I'd like to make some changes. Hello, Wolfie.
Not you too! I'm tired of being cast as the big bad wolf. I don't like playing the antagonist. Antagonist, that's a big, beautiful, fancy word that means the bad guy. And eating pigs has been horrible for my diet. I keep huffing and puffing. Oh, that's why. So, what do you suggest? Asked the writer. I want to be the good guy, the hero, the protagonist. The protagonist is the big, beautiful, fancy word in writing that means the hero, the lead character. I want friends.
Yes! Oink, 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 oink.
They all oinked in unison, in fact.
We all want to be friends, friends, friends.
What? No pig eating? Everybody wants to be friends? This is not a respectable fairy tale.
Ha! That's why it's a twisted fairy tale. Look, said the writer, a story has 5 basic elements. Oh, that's actually true. So if you're going to write your own story one day, these elements are good to know. But let's see what she has to say about the story. Characters, animals or people in the story. Got that? Setting, the place where the story occurs. Okay, that makes sense. Usually it's in the woods, but not this version. And the plot, how the events in the story unfold. That's right, something has to happen in the story. If you're all just friends, there's no conflict. And without a conflict, a problem, there's no story, explained the writer. Now, that is true. Usually there's a story, and then the big story hinges on the conflict, and then the end of the story is when you have a resolution, the ending to the conflict in the story of your plot. But there is a conflict, said Professor Pigsley, just not the one you expected. That means she's starting to write the story herself.
Yes, I agree with that pig thing. And Little Miss Rider Pants, we need conflict.
Her name is Robin. So rude. Now, check out this plot twist, said Wolfie. Once upon a time.
Okay, is this going to be like the real version now?
I think it's going to be the real twisted version.
Woo!
Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. Professor Pigsley, Pig Newton the Fabulous, and the great flying pigoletto, and a big, bold wolf known as Wolfie the Bold. Obviously, a super cool skateboarding kind of guy. And a writer kept in the dark and still writing with a feather and a little pot of ink because even though this is the modern 21st century, she's still kicking it old school style. The pigs and the wolf wanted to tell a story about friendship and adventure. The writer had other ideas. And look at how mean they've made her look. And she's holding up her demands for the book. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs and 1 bad wolf. The end. So then she hands her version of the story over to the wolf. And then the wolf seems to happily take it. But then, the wolf seems to be riding on the back of their adventure airplane. And now she's running after them, and they're both holding onto the same piece of paper. And they are taking off in midair, and she's still holding on, and he's still holding on. And what is about to happen right now? And then, he lets go, and she's, woo! And so the pigs and the wolf wrote the writer right out of their story.
Now we're cooking with gas.
The writer was a weak character. She had to go.
Harsh editing choices. And the last we knew, the writer was seen flying through the air, trying to grab a hold of her feather and her original manuscript.
Bye-bye, Little Miss Writer Pants.
Bye-bye. But the story is not over. Setting the story in the woods was so uncreative. I mean, obviously, so done. So instead, what did they do? They flew away from Earth and onto a foreign planet where instead of woods, they found these strange formations that tried to grab a hold of Wolf and then did grab a hold of Wolf because they suddenly grew arms, and then they almost pulled him right off of the plane, but woo! They got away. And what about the plot? The plot had no twists or turns to make. But the plane did. The story. Exciting! There goes the plane. There go our characters. And using the wolf as a bully to build conflict has been so overdone. But all of them parachuting out of a plane that just went away, that's never been done. The pigs and the wolf lived happily ever after in a sturdy brick house at the top of a steel skyscraper with its own helipad, which is so boss. The end. That's a lovely resolution, said Professor Pigsley. And the story was written by Pig Newton the Fabulous, the Great Flying Pigoletto, Professor Pigley, and Wolfie the Bold. Bravo, said the writer who survived the fall.
Well, nothing's perfect.
That story was perfect. It had all the interesting characters, the fascinating setting. It had a great plot. It had an incredible plot twist with conflict.
Pretty sure what they did to the writer was a felony.
It probably was. But she was fine in the end. And you know what all of this tells me, kid?
That we need a helipad? That we should live in a building on top of a building?
That we should drop someone in the ocean?
That being a true original and not doing what everybody else has already done is a story you want to tell.
Let's drop someone in the ocean!